Hi, I'm Mike Glenn. I'm senior pastor of Brentwood Baptist Church. If you like what you are seeing here, we'd love for you to let us know that by hitting subscribe or like. I'm told it's somewhere right here, but it'll be around this general area. When people find out that I've been at Brentwood Baptist Church 27, now almost 28 years, they always ask me how I have stayed at the church this long. Maybe the question should be how the church has put up with me for this long. But I always tell them I've pastored 4 or 5 churches at the same address, and we're getting ready to go through another transition, so actually it'll be even more than that. It'll be 6, maybe 7, who knows. Then they ask me, what was your biggest mistake? And that one's easy. I didn't listen. When I was excited to get to Brentwood Baptist Church, I was excited about all the things that I thought could be done, and I hit the ground running full speed ahead. I didn't take the time to allow the people to catch up or to even understand the people I was working with. I just ran on. And you know the old saying, if you're leading and nobody's following, you're just out for a walk. Well, for a couple of years, I wasn't leading, I was walking. If I had to go back, here's what I would do. I would sit down with every group I could, every Sunday school class, every men's prayer breakfast, everywhere there were 2 or 3 Brentwood Baptist Church members, I would have gotten there. And I would have listened to the stories. And I would have asked them, where have you seen God show up? What's the last time that this church recognized the Spirit of God moving? What are your dreams? What are your hope? And those moments where you're just about to fall asleep and you say, our church would be great if. How do you finish that sentence? And I would have listed all of those things that I heard in those conversations. I would have stood up in front of the church and I said, here's what you have told me. The irony of that is we had been talking about the same thing for about 2 years. I had been using a different language. I had been using different words. They had been trying to communicate to me in their language that I wouldn't take the time to understand. And when we begin to line things up like our church was a church plant, our founding pastor was a church planter that we called from a church plant in North Carolina. So when you put all of those lines together, and the thing about a line is you only need 2 dots, you can draw a line. And the line goes on forever. So if you draw the line between those 2 dots and push it on out, then you can see where God is going to work in our future. So it becomes pretty evident that Brentwood Baptist Church is going to be a church that plants churches. Why? That's who we were when we were born. That's who we identified with in the call of our first pastor. And in the heart of Bill Wilson, our founding pastor, when I talked to him after he had retired, I said, what do you regret? He said, I wish we had started more churches. So when you lay that out, then it's obvious. See, I'd been talking about a church that created other churches and all of this. The church didn't get my language. Had I put it out in their language, I would have saved 2 years of my life and 2 years of their life. In the story of Exodus, there are 2 midwives, Shiphrah and Puah, who are celebrated even now in Jewish history as heroes, even bigger than Moses. Why? Because these 2 women took on Pharaoh and they didn't need a burning bush. Now remember the story. Pharaoh had issued an order that all of the male children were to be killed. All the male Hebrew children were to be killed. Shiphrah and Puah didn't do it. And when Pharaoh called them to account, they said, well, the Hebrew women are so strong, they have the babies before we get there, so we never see the child. Because of them, 2 things happened. 1, they would not let a pagan king define the future of God's people. And 2, they created a safe place for the dream of God to be born in the child Moses. Most of the time, pastors are told, you bring the vision. You go up on the mountain, God tells you, and you come down and you tell the people. God tells me, I'm telling you. But more times than not, God has brought that church into being, called to life with a vision already in the church. Just as each child is born with a vision, each church is born with a particular calling, a particular vision. So the role of the pastor is not to walk in and share the vision as much as it is like a midwife to create a safe place for that dream to be born, to create a safe place for the conversation of God's people to say, here's where we have seen God work. Here's what we would like to see God do again. and shape that and pull that out so that it's the vision that the church understands. How many times in Acts do you see the phrase, and it seemed good to the church? Same thing. We're going to pull out. This is what God has done. This is how he seems to be moving now. And that will seem good to the church. The pastor comes as midwife to give birth to the vision that's already in the people of God. The second thing, the pastor has to protect the church from allowing anybody else to define the future of the church. Now, you know, as a church leader, member, pastor, that there is an entire industry of nothing but church conferences where you go and you're told, hey, if you want your church to be hip, not whatever, then here's what you have to do to your church. I can't tell you how many people have been disappointed and how many churches have been actually injured because somebody went back with a vision that somebody else had for some other church that was never intended for your church, that was never intended for your ministry. Sometimes the most important thing you can do is keep out all of the well-meaning ideas and experts who want to help your church, but who do not know your church, who do not love your church. So Shapiro and Pua did two things: protected the church so nobody else but God could define the future of God's people. And secondly, created a safe place for that vision to be born. The call of the pastor is to be the midwife, to create a safe place for the dream that God has already put in that church, to create a safe place for that vision to be born. When you do that, you and the church and God's mission will line up when the pastor comes as a midwife. I'm Mike Glenn. I'm a senior pastor at Brentwood Baptist Church. This is our YouTube channel, and I'd love for you to hit subscribe, like, and we'll see you next time.